Hi, everyone. Welcome to this interview by Core Recruitment. Thank you very much for joining us today. If you're not familiar with Core, we are an international recruitment specialist and we do exec and non-exec roles across our chosen sectors. We're doing this interview series to promote some positivity within the sectors that we operate within. And we're really lucky to have had some phenomenal business leaders join us so far. All of the interviews and articles that we're doing can be viewed on our website, www.corerecruitment.com. So hopefully you can sit back, relax, and get motivated and G'd up for this 20-minute session. We're really lucky to be joined today by Silvio from Landmark Leisure, part of Landmark Group. Hi, Silvio. How are you?
Hi, Krishnan. I'm very well. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome. We've spoken many times over the years, so thank you so much for taking part in this series. To get us kicked off with, for those who don't know or might not be kind of familiar, can you just tell us a bit about Landmark Leisure and how it slots into the Landmark Group as a whole to get us kicked off?
Yes. Yeah, Landmark Group is actually a kind of homegrown retail consortium which focuses in the name mainly on retail, but also has a quite a diverse hospitality division, of which Landmark Leisure is part. It was founded 52 years ago. Actually, started in Bahrain, of all places, with a kind of mother care store, and now Landmark Group has is operating in 23 different countries, has over 55,000 employees, and I think latest count was 37 different businesses and brands. So,
Wow.
so it's quite a significant player in the retail and hospitality industry in the Middle East, India, even Asia. Yeah.
Absolutely, that's incredible. Now, your story's incredible because I think I first encountered you when you were working at Butlins Bognor Regis in 2005. So your growth within that has been absolutely phenomenal. And I mean, you're one of the success stories is who's kind of moved to Dubai. You've been there 20 years now. I can see you cringing already, but it's kind of like, but you've got to be pretty pleased with that kind of growth that you've experienced in the last 20
Yeah.
years, right?
It's funny that you say it, Krishnan, but I still remain the the position and the responsibility I had in Butlers and Bognor was probably the toughest job I ever had in my life. Because you have to be the master of all trades in that job. Yeah, from all aspects of hospitality, from uh, catering, from restaurants, from bars, from entertainment, from theme parks, from water parks, from accommodation, hotel management. You needed to be a master of all trades, and so obviously in my this experience I had there really put me in good stead going forward. So I really learned what stress means and what hard work meant, and it served me relatively well here in the Middle East.
Absolutely. Now, there is this impression globally that the Middle East at the moment is where it's at in terms of like specifically kind of like Dubai, Saudi, and for people looking to develop their careers and people looking for opportunity. I mean, are the streets paved with gold?
Maybe not literally, but uh, I have to say the UAE. I don't want to just say about Dubai. I do believe all Emirates in the UAE experiencing massive population growth, massive inflow of foreign investment. Yeah, I mean, let's just see, Ras Al Khaimah, the Vin Group just invested over 5.5 billion US dollar
Mm,
in its first casino full resort on Mayan Island. So it's not just Dubai, it's not just Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi just announced the planning and the opening in the not too distant future about Disneyland in Yas Island in Abu Dhabi. So the whole UAE is just crazy, literally. There's a lot of population coming in, not just rich people, as is well reported, although there's a significant amount of migration of value and money coming into the country, but also it's full of people who are after opportunities. Yeah, so the the country loosened their visa regulations over the last few years quite a bit, where people can have a entry visa for 60 or 90 days, particularly from those countries who provides kind of blue collar labor, particularly in the hospitality and service sector, and this has this has resulted in and a plethora of people coming and trying their luck, almost like the uh, gold digging migration, which has happened in the history
Mm.
of other countries, where people from lesser fortuitous countries coming to Dubai and trying to their luck here and work their way up. So we've seen both facets. So, and in my view, the UAE, uh, with its liberal regulations and which
Mm.
is openness and friendliness, is it's a perfect sample how this can work, you know. And Saudi, they have big plans, they have a big country, they have um, uh, a big population, and but there might be politically and structurally not quite there yet, although they want to catch up big time. So there's also great amount of opportunity in hospitality, but also in retail and finance. And uh, what what is quite quite obvious to observe in the particularly in the UE is the focus on next generation economy like artificial intelligence, fintech, um, uh, healthcare. So those sectors, security and safety, those sectors are, uh, I firmly believe, part of the mid to long term future of humanity. And the UE is really trying to go leaps and bounds and creating competence centers left, right, and center. And I think, and with it, with this total population growth and migration of wealth into the country, the hospitality sector is crazy. And I know I'm mentioning hospitality sector because core recruitment major arm is hospitality. And Dubai alone has 150,000 hotel rooms now. For 2026, by end of 26, this will go up to 170,000. I actually don't know if there's any other city in the world who has so many hotel beds. Yeah, uh, maybe Orlando or Las Vegas, but that's about it. Yeah. So then and 80% of those hotel beds are 5-star plus. Yeah. So the opportunity for hospitality, uh, frontline or management, middle management or higher management are enormous. You know, so then the entertainment industry where I'm acting, it's buoyant. You know, as I mentioned to you earlier, every week a new concept opens, a new brand comes. Yeah, food and beverage. Yeah, I mean Dubai alone is home to 19,000 restaurants. Yeah, and roughly 1,000 close every year, but 1,000 new ones coming in. Yeah, it's crazy. And
So the major like competition or the major challenge for your business at the moment is not so much about customer spend and market and all of that side of things. It's more about the level of competition which is coming into the country. Is that fair to say?
absolutely,
Yeah.
fragmentation, cannibalization is my biggest headache. Yeah.
So I think we
Um,
skipped over this slightly at the start when we were talking about landmark, but in terms of like nuts and bolts stuff, in terms of landmark leisure, just so that people watching can
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
understand what exactly is the business?
No, we are operating. Uh, we are operating 8 different brands in
Hmm.
7 different countries, and it's all indoor entertainment. So we
Hmm.
take high footfall spaces, majority of which are shopping center in the GCC, Middle East, and India. And we operate indoor theme parks, we operate indoor play areas, we operate indoor arcades, we operate all kinds of different products uh, in order to cater to this kind of captive footfall. And we have, I lost count, maybe around between 95 and 100 locations. I don't know the exact number across those 7 different countries. And we have around what 2.5, 3,000 employees in Landmark Leisure. And and we started with one little brand, Fun City, and this has now grown to 8 different brands. We're launching a new brand in India in April this year with 3 prototype locations. Again, is a part of our effort. We have to constantly reinvent ourselves because we have to stay relevant. As I mentioned, the market, both the GCC and India, is buoyant. Every week a new concept comes out, and if you sit on your laurels, you quite quickly will feel the heat. You know, so you have to stay alert. And when I have my board meetings, the discussion is never really about performance. It's more about, Silvio, how can you and your businesses stay relevant in this ever fast growing market? You know?
So if we break those down into, because they're two very vastly different markets in terms of like the UAE versus kind of like India on that side of things. So we're looking at
Yeah.
the UAE kind of like, high disposable income level, drastic amounts of competition. What are you doing within your outlets there to stay ahead of the competition, and how are you kind of innovating?
Now, there are several foods. Obviously, uh, smart, smart packaging and pricing, I think, is a key issue. So I'm probably our brands are perceived as the best value for money in the market,
Hmm.
but at the same time, we have been able to increase our yield every single year since COVID. You know? So, and I think that it is important to see. So, whoever comes into our environments, customers spend significant more money than they did 3, 4 years ago, and this number is still growing. So, you do it through smart packaging, but also through consistent offering. So we certainly have certain value anchors in our overall product, which helps to generate the perception and the understanding by the customer. Okay, there's a value. On Monday or Tuesdays, depending on the country, we have our fun days where you basically play for 1 dirham. Yeah. So to put it in context, 1 dirham is around 20 cents. Yeah.
Mm,
Or 20 p's, British terms. Sorry, I'm getting confused. So, this drives, you know, usually our entertainment centers are a product of convenience in high value footfall areas. So customers go there because they have something to do or to buy or to visit. And then the little one wants to go into an entertainment center, and we are the convenient existence there. But
yeah,
on Tuesdays, customers make the choice to go to a shopping center or a high footfall area because of our funding. So because the value proposition is so strong that we see significant increase in traffic and footfall on Tuesdays or Mondays, whichever day we have the funding.
absolutely.
Another thing is that we sell monthly memberships for our play areas.
Yeah.
So we see whereby a normal customer comes to our stores maybe 3 times over a 6 months period. Yeah. So as you can see, customer centricity is very important because we have a lot of repeat visitation. Our player membership members come between 7 to 9 times in the 6 months period. So we have a lot of repeat visitation. So and obviously it says if you have that, so how can you offer a good experience to people who come maybe twice a month to your store? So and there's where having employment which focuses on making the customer feel special. We have a lot of almost emotional connections between customers and staff,
Yeah.
almost like uh, some of our staff are part and parcel of the upbringing of some children. Yeah, so because they come that often. I mean, I sell a membership. I always do a 6 months rolling report with our memberships so in 180 days, our record holder came 161 times in 180 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's
Crazy.
crazy. Yeah.
So the demographic mostly that you are servicing here, and this is just to kind of like delve in
Yeah.
kind of like a little bit further, but I mean, it's what age group would you kind of say is you're kind of like, across all the
No, no, we
concepts is
have
your,
different brands. We have Tridome, which is our theme park, which is probably more 5 to 99. But I would say overall across my whole business, my target audience is families with children 2 to 12.
yeah,
And then we have some brands which go slightly higher. But in an overall majority, we're talking about family with children age 2 to 12. Yeah.
right. Because what we've seen, there's two things I wanted to kind of ask about from that context. Because one thing that we've seen kind of like a lot, kind of like in different markets, is the kind of social entertainment side of things
Yes.
exploded. I mean, you're kind of like golf concepts, you're this, you're that, next thing. And that demographic seems to be kind of like, maybe for older teens up into kind of like young adults to
100%.
workplaces, that kind of side of
Yeah.
things. And the other anomaly that we've kind of seen a lot of is these kind of private members clubs for children, which basically have the kids play area kind of like doing all of their stuff. And then on the other side of things, you've kind of got kind of like, some very nice bar restaurant operations, which is very much more for the kind of adult side of things. What have you seen kind of like, in terms of like those trends, kind of like, with those different markets?
You see, I wouldn't call it an anomaly anymore. We, in fact, have a social competitive socializing. We call it a concept as well, called level art. It is the trend at this point. Yeah. So and it comes in all different forms and phases. Probably the most successful product launched in the UE in terms of competitive socializing has been Topgolf in Dubai.
Mm,
It's actually, I think, I know the CEO of Topgolf quite well, and he said, I think 6 months for 6 months last year, it was actually the number one Topgolf location in the world.
wow.
Even outperforming Las Vegas, and uh, so it is crazy, and this was probably, I would argue, probably the first hyper successful uh, establishment where you combine really, really strong entertainment product with really, really strong F&B. You know,
Hmm.
and what you find, particularly in the UAE, not in Saudi as yet, is the licensed F&B combined with a strong competitive social offering is just going crazy. You know, but you also have competitive socializing product launching without the license. But the real, real big success stories are those products which offer a strong F&B with a strong license. So there is almost a revenue mix of 50-50, I would argue. Well,
Mm,
you take the sample of Topgolf, um, relatively, and I say relatively affordable rental of the bay and experience the game, but they really make their money with F&B. And
yeah.
once you are active and you compete with a group of friends, you are thirsty and you get hungry. Yeah, and they take full advantage of that. And I think there's the core concept of social, even, yeah. And there, of course, London is a hotbed of all kinds of competitive socializing, but the F&B part is as important, if not more
Yeah.
important, than the entertainment part.
100%. Coming on to the second part of that question regarding India, because India is appearing on the map now. Increasingly, we're hearing more and more about companies looking at how they can capture that market because, like, massive population, massive middle class growth kind of like area. Which markets in India do you think that people should be looking at, and what trends are you seeing in that side of things?
Listen, India is pretty much an inflection point. There's a strong economically orientated leadership from a government point of view who is trying to really put India on the map. So there's a lot of investment in infrastructure going on in India yet, although not as effective as it happened in China, for example, but it's happening. Yeah. And what is also happening is that you have a kind of, and I read a really interesting article by Times Magazine in terms of the India has around 1.5 billion people population, and the top 1%, they live on cloud cuckoo land, so they are not really uh, used for reference point. But you have this middle class with a relatively high disposable income. This is around 150 to 170 million people.
Mm,
So half the population of Europe, if you look at it this way. But this number has stayed flat over the last 10 years. It hasn't. One of the big structural problems India has is they have not been able to grow that middle income, high disposable income bracket significantly. Yeah, the 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 part of population which lives close or even below the poverty line actually has grown much faster. you know. So the big structural challenge for India is to create jobs and livelihood for those people. And India's politics is particularly kind of designed to cater for that. However, these 170 million people, they are very active. Um, and if you look at the hospitality division, you have some stunning hotels in India. And I'm going to India once every month. I can tell you over the last 5, 6, 7 years I'm doing that. Uh, the hotel prices have gone growing probably 4 times what it was 6, 7 years ago in terms of
Wow.
room rates. Yeah, so I think hotels are totally underserved in India, and particular and the quality difference between a good 5 star and the run-of-the-mill business hotel 3 or 4 star are quite significant. So I think there's a big room in the 3 and 4 star segment in India to really make make a shout. In terms of food and beverage, is a buoyant market. India, also particular in the metropolitan areas, where when you see Bangalore, Hyderabad, Mumbai, Chennai, Delhi, there's this kind of bar culture where again they try to combine not so much a competitive socializing, but the F&B going out. It's a big thing in India now. And then you have also shopping centers, which are some of them in quality and aspiration are equal to what happens in Dubai and the UAE. Yeah. So we have in India we have malls with 1.5 million square foot of leasable space, and they using proper materials and trying to be as ambitious. And their rent is not far behind all the big cities in the world. So obviously we operate in that space. So I do believe in your offers, massive, because you might not have the spend per head as such than the Middle East has, but you have the volume. So and obviously this is critical factor.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I wasn't aware of that population thing because everything that we hear about is the fact that that population is growing, but it's very interesting that it's stagnated. It's still 175 million people though, so you know what I mean? It's still a big market to
Half
go
of
after,
Europe,
but
half of
yeah,
Europe has money to spend.
yeah, exactly. It's a good
I
thing,
don't
right?
know out of the 350 million people who live in Europe, how many have money to spend. Yeah,
A good point. It's a good point. In terms
yeah,
of your own background and experience, Silvio, so you studied macroeconomics at
yeah.
university.
Mm.
Just throwing that out there. But like,
Uh,
but in terms of like, how did you get into hospitality and does that like, I mean, does that benefit your approach in
yeah.
kind of any way?
It's funny how the life plays with you. So I was studying in Berlin, but obviously I was born in East Germany. So when the wall came down, then how old I am, yeah. So when the wall came down, I studied. Uh, I started capitalism and journalism in Leipzig in East Germany. So in the Karl Marx's Capital was left, right, and center. So and obviously the war and with all this political shift, how relevant was that? So the only course I could get into was macroeconomics in Berlin. So that is how I started it. It was not really by choice, but I worked part time in Marché Mövenpick, which is obviously a European powerhouse in terms of F&B and B and hospitality. And I earned my money there, and I was actually uh, quite doing my part-time work as a student in Berlin. I had quite a bit responsibility in this, probably the biggest marché they ever had in terms of revenue on the Kurfürstendamm in Berlin. So and then when I finished my studies and trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life, there came this opportunity to go to Legoland and Windsor to help because Mövenpick done a deal with Lego to do the F&B in Legoland Windsor.
Oh, wow.
And that was a big, how should I say, a big statement for Mövenpick because they didn't really have a clue about how to do F&B in a theme park. So in come I there, and I just had some personal dilemma and blah blah blah. I thought I go there. So we were asked if somebody's interested to help opening that theme park for a few months in England in the summer. And I thought, oh yeah, it's good time. Let me get out of here. Let me learn a bit of language, English. So, and then the rest is history. I stayed at Legoland Windsor, but for best part of 8 years. So in the end, I was actually running Legoland Windsor. And then I got headhunted from Butlins, and there I was stuck in hospitality. Yeah. So if this makes sense as a storyline, so that is how
I always find it fascinating how people kind of like, because some people do set up to be in hospitality, but there's so many people that fall into it and just end up loving it and just end up staying in it and developing their careers. So it's always super interesting. I was
Yeah,
gonna.
because in hospitality, I think, Krishnan, you don't work for companies, you work for people. And the kind of personal, the interpersonal skills you have to have as a leader in hospitality in order to keep your troops motivated and engaged, because we are not the best payers. Usually we offer the hardest work. Yeah. So how do you make that work? There's always extra. I always find there's always extra skills needed as a leader in hospitality to really make that work.
Absolutely. Looking back on your career, were there any specific leaders who you learned specific lessons from, or anyone who kind of like, really inspired you, or, not every day is a sunny day in business, not even in the
Mm,
UAE. Is there anyone like, when you're having a
no,
bit of a dark
I,
moment, you think, what would so and so do?
I would go even a tiny bit deeper if you allow me, Krishna. I remember when I was at Legoland in Windsor, so uh, uh, kind of, I think she was a junior manager and I was, for the first few years, I was running the F&B department there. And she was not a great performer. So, and yeah, I was relatively young in the management role as well. I didn't really know how to deal with the situation. You know how it is. Your first management role, the last thing you want to do is tell somebody you're not good enough, get lost, and blah blah blah. So I waited, but after 6 months, I had enough. So I had the balls finally to sit her down and say, "Listen, it's not going to work out. You've done this and this and this and this and this." And she said something for me, Krishna, which has stuck with me for the rest of my working life. And she said, "Silvio, I actually agree with you." But she said the most important thing was, why did you waited 6 months to tell me that I'm not good enough? I wish you would have been open and honest with me right when the first time I messed it up. Yeah,
Wow.
you waited too long, and I wasted 6 months of my life here, and you had 6 months of headaches. So at that moment, she was 10 times more mature than I was. But it really stuck with me. And if you would ask people who work for me now, they would tell you, with Silvio, I don't really have to wait for appraisal to find out I'm good or bad. You know, I know it every day or week interacting with him, whether he respects me, rates me, or likes to work with me or collaborates with me. So what I see is what I get. And it has served me well as a leader and being perceived in that way.
That's really good, that constant feedback. That's really good to hear. So some of the people watching this will be in colder climates, looking at perhaps relocation to the Middle East, or kind of thinking about that. And like your journey, as I mentioned, kind of like at the start of this, has been phenomenal. You know what I mean? But in terms of any speed bumps you've encountered, any advice that you would give people who are just coming into the UAE and looking to start their kind of like careers there, what surprised you, and what kind of like what advice would you give to other people?
Ooh, good question. So you have to. I mean, one of the things which is currently happening in the employment market in the Middle East is companies trying to get smarter. So obviously you have still big discrepancy in terms of expectation. Let's see, from the Western expatriate to the Eastern expatriates. As you know, the Indian and Chinese education system is very strong. And well-educated Indians entering the market who demand or who don't want to start in higher packages as a Western European expat might
Hmm.
expect to start.
Yes.
Certainly, the kind of sacrificing job posting agenda is well over. Companies are looking really now at the best qualification, best value for money. But if I learned one thing is, from an emotional intelligence point of view, in the end, people with the right attitude rather than the right skill gonna win the race.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I certainly, one of my core recruitment principles is I hire for attitude, because I think I can teach a skill, particularly in hospitality.
Yeah.
So you have all this highly educated, highly graduated uh, people coming in from all sorts on the world, but they mentally and uh, they are just not ready to. They just don't grasp what it takes to really work in hospitality and work in the right way. So I rather have a person who is less educated, but whose attitude is much more serving to the purpose in hospitality, and it is to make others happy.
Yes.
Fundamentally, it's hospitality. And so my advice is that don't think you are highly educated Western expats and you are you are on the top cream. No, your attitude will determine your success. So the way you go about it, and one mistake I see a lot of people doing is also quite pragmatic. Is they come in a new job and think they have to be the star performer in the first month, and they in the meantime they forget to sort themselves out, and they then in this spiral which they can't get out of. So when you come and you have a job, so make sure you have enough time set aside to sort out all the paperwork. Whether it's visa, whether it's residency, whether it's driving permit, whether it's homes, whether it's all that stuff. So despite the fact that Dubai is probably the most technology advanced government service environment I know of, it still takes. And once you have ticked all those boxes, then you can be really free to do what you want to do, in terms of work-wise, and yeah, and don't be too disrupted by all the branches and all the nice things to do. The work comes first. But if you work hard, you also can play hard, and certainly that is Dubai proves that every week.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Sylvia, I really enjoyed the chat. Thank you so much for hopping on and talking about all the growth, all the expansion, especially the stuff about India. I find it kind of like, extremely interesting, and I hope you have a really good year. A landmark pleasure.
The same to you, Krishna, and all the best, and see you soon.